Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're asking if the Emperor erased Vulkan's memory within the throne room, and if so, why? A spoiler warning to begin here, as today we will be discussing events from across the Horus Heresy, and in particular the novels Fury of Magnus and Echoes of Eternity. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so one of the absolute best factors of the Siege of Terror for me was, although we'd spent years building towards this expected event, knew who the main players were and what the outcome was going to be, there was still the element of surprise and unknown going into it. The wonder. And this was perfectly symbolised by the presence of Vulkan, a Primarch who we had never previously known to be upon the throne world during this pivotal time. And to top it all off, we got him having an unbelievable encounter during it against Magnus the Red atop the Golden Throne itself, providing us not only a stellar ending to Magnus's heresy story, but a moment that will surely live with us forever too. The Emperor offering Magnus redemption, but only him, not his legion. Promising him instead a new one, leaving the Primarch with a terrible choice to make. A choice which no father could make, the abandonment of his sons. And thus Magnus declined. And it's the aftermath of this where things got somehow even better, with the now reborn Demon Magnus appearing within the webway, seeking to add his weight to the assault against the portal to the throne room, increasing the pressure on the Emperor tenfold, to the point where he would surely break. And we would see Vulkan enter the webway itself to stop his brother once again. And we'll discuss this moment in depth later in the week. But today, I wanted to focus on one particular revelation. And that is, during this fight between them, it appears Vulkan's recollection of the reunion upon the Golden Throne is very, very different indeed. Vulkan and Magnus were present at this point in the recent past, as well as drifting through it in their current incarnations. They watched themselves at the foot of the Golden Throne, Vulkan implacable, but for the regret lining his features. Magnus manifest as a being of light, shimmering in and out of the layers of reality perceptible to the human eye. Here, said the Magnus of now, watching the Magnus of then. Here is where I made my choice. You saw the Emperor make his final offer to me. You heard him promise me a new legion. If I would only forsake Horus and come back to you all. A matter of mere weeks ago, brother. Will you tell me you've forgotten it? Vulkan sighed. He seemed suddenly weary. That is not what transpired here, Magnus. The last, unstained shard of your soul burst into the throne room and begged to be saved. With a heavy heart, Father refused you. That is what I saw. That is what happened. Magnus's laughter was blunt, practically a derisive bark. And you say I'm the one who has been deceived. And so to the question for today. Has the Emperor mind-wiped Vulkan of what transpired within the throne room? Altered his memory? And if so, why? Well, obviously, Fury of Magnus was written from Magnus's perspective, and as always with the lore, we do have to keep that in mind. particularly within the Horus Heresy series. So we can say that the events may well not have played out exactly like we saw within Fury of Magnus. And the element of it being a final shard begging for forgiveness is incredibly interesting. However, I'm just not sure we can buy it, as we have seen what transpired with each of Magnus's shards. We saw what happened with Malkador when Magnus was informed that the final shard was gone, no more. And so while yes, Fury of Magnus was Magnus's view, it still seems far more likely the Emperor has altered Vulkan's memory of the encounter within the throne room. And we know that this is possible because it has been revealed in the lore that he's done it before, removing all of the Primarch's memories, in fact, of the lost 2 Primarchs, which is why none of the Primarchs ever speak of them in real detail. Now, I will point out that that was slightly different, as that was apparently done at the request of Rogel, and I think Gilliman if I'm remembering correctly. But I'd have to go back and double check that one. And hey, maybe a more commonly known incident of it is Malek, the Emperor altering the memories of the Primarchs present to forget the portal. But I digress, it can be done. And indeed, it's even more likely to have been done, because after this, it's shown that the Emperor is empowering Vulkan within the webway here, and he speaks to Vulkan psychically. And so, while we'll never be able to say for sure, seeing as it is most likely that it was done, then why? Why has the Emperor felt the need to alter Vulkan's memory? What is so bad about what happened within the throne room, when we have seen those events, admittedly from Magnus's perspective, ourselves? Magnus entered the Imperial Palace in secret to seek his final shard, the shard he believed was the best of him. And unknown to him, this was all allowed by the Emperor himself, wanting to get Magnus within the throne room, to speak to him, to make his offer of redemption. And yes, Magnus killed Malkador by accident, but he also saved thousands of innocent civilians too. And then, when he was brought into the throne room by the Emperor himself, the Emperor gave him his choice, his chance of redemption. Return to the Imperium and fight the traitors, and be given a new legion, because the Emperor knew Magnus was truly loyal within his soul, but at the cost of having to leave his existing legion and sons behind. And we know Magnus declined, not being able to sacrifice his sons to do so, fighting Vulkan and losing, giving his soul to Tzeentch in the final moment, being immediately banished by the Emperor's power. That doesn't sound too bad. Yes, of course it's a tragic story, a shame, but it's not something, to my mind at least, that would cause Vulkan any consternation, any doubts or trouble regarding his loyalty. He was there, asking his one-time brother to rejoin them, and he fought him when he did not. Vulkan didn't waver at all. So, what gives? Even if you just focus on the cold, uncaring aspect of the Emperor, it surely doesn't make any sense. That there's no reason for the manipulation here. However, the answer perhaps comes in those moments later, when Vulkan and Magnus are fighting within the webway, and the Emperor speaks to Vulkan, revealed to be empowering his son in his efforts against the demon Primarch. Breathless, Standing over the paralysed remnant of his mutated brother, Vulkan raised his hammer. In the same moment, Magnus somehow lifted his head. The sorcerer stared past Vulkan, over his executioner's shoulder. Either he saw nothing, or he saw without the use of his eye, which was a burst fruit of a thing, turned to leaking pulp in its shattered socket. "Wait," the demon wheezed, the word ruined by the graveyard of his teeth. "Father, wait." "Father is far from here," Vulkan almost said, wondering what visions were conjured in his brother's dying mind. But he saw the fear on Magnus's face, imprinted with the lines of regret. It was enough to make him hesitate. "I don't have to do this." But he did. Not just because it would free the Emperor from the sorcerer's assault. Not just because thousands were dying in front of the Eternity Gate. But because this was how the archenemy drilled inside a heart and soul. The creatures sank their tendrils into a person's hesitations, cracking them open to become doubts. They caressed along the edges of someone's virtues, heightening them, souring them into flaws. They would do the same with Vulkan's mercy. Mercy was how the Pantheon would welcome him, and how he would begin to do their will. He would trust someone that breathed deceit. He would spare the life of a man that must die. And he would feel righteous, as his 9 traitorous brothers felt righteous. Deaf to the laughter of the gods as he moved to their etheric melody. Like his brothers, he would believe it was his own virtue guiding his hand. "I see now," the blind demon whispered. "Forgive me." "He lies." The Emperor's voice was ice behind Vulkan's eyes. It ground into the temples from the inside, seeking a way out of his skull. He lies even to himself. It is all he can do now. Finish it. Magnus grunted as if overhearing the words. His contrition soured, becoming spite. As his expression darkened, the Emperor's tone struck Vulkan's mind with the force of a storm's wind. "They prey upon your mercy. He gathers his strength. Kill him." The 2 brothers moved in opposing harmony, perfect motion, reflections of one another. Vulkan dealt the executioner's blow, and in the same moment, Magnus dealt his. So, mercy. Could it actually all be linked to Vulkan's mercy? I think it is. That description there of how the ruinous powers could get to even Vulkan, that they would do the same with Vulkan's mercy. Mercy was how the Pantheon would welcome him, and how he would begin to do their will. Even a noble emotion, a good intent, is still able to be manipulated if you're not careful, if it is misplaced. And the Emperor knows this. His words to Vulkan, "They prey upon your mercy." This is why the Emperor manipulated Vulkan's memory of the throne room, his last encounter with his true brother Magnus. Because he knows his son. He knew Vulkan, despite his loyalty, would feel profound sorrow at having to put Magnus down. At losing another brother, be filled with regret. And that would have been magnified tenfold by how Magnus fell in the end. Not because he was truly disloyal, but because he couldn't sacrifice his legion, his sons. How Vulkan would hesitate even just momentarily because of it. That he would dwell upon it. Reflect how he most likely would have made the same choice as a father. And even though Vulkan was completely loyal, That risk of mercy within him for Magnus was just a risk too great. The Emperor knew Vulkan's greatest strength, in this instance, was Vulkan's greatest weakness. And so he altered Vulkan's memory of the throne room to just a shard of Magnus breaking in and regretfully having to be destroyed. That Magnus didn't fall because of his sacrifice for his sons, that he fell instead because of his arrogance. That there was no offer of redemption, no tearful reunion, and no refusal of sacrificing his sons by a still truly loyal Magnus. And so in that regard, you can kind of understand why the Emperor did what he did. I'm not saying it's right, but just that you can kind of understand it. He needed Vulkan to win within the webway. The entire galaxy did, and the Emperor needed to protect him. It's cold, it's perhaps callous, but it is understandable. And so as always everyone, what do you think? Do you agree that the Emperor did alter Vulkan's memory? Or do you disagree? That this is all down instead to individual perceptions? That Vulkan's version is simply how it all really transpired? But if it was manipulation, do you understand why the Emperor did it? And do you think it was the right move to make? Could Vulkan have become a victim of his own mercy if the Emperor did not manipulate his memory? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.